everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are on episode 16 of Orb on the Movements of the Earth, and Father Grabowski was given a bunch of heads from Bodini with some transcriptions tattooed upon them, and we're going to see what he does with that this episode. Maybe, possibly, we'll see. We had Novak breaking down. That was actually really sad. Antony is a bitch. So there's that too. But yeah, I have no clue where we're going with this. Novak breaking down was really hard last week. It was really hard to watch. It was just like one of those, like, what do you do? What can you say? And then from Bodini from Beyond the Grave reaching out to Grabowski, we had some good discussions about that last week. And I can't wait to hear your comments about that, which I will talk about next week in the intro. But for now, I have a couple comments about episode 12 and episode 14 that I want to talk with you all about before we dive into this episode. I Swallow Apple Seeds 927 for episode 12. I got a kick out of this comment. I said, I'm sorry, but when you said he's marking him, I immediately thought about the Omegaverse. Me too. So with Bodini being the frail alpha and Aksha being the strong but meek Omega, that pairing, look, have I dabbled in the Omegaverse on AO3? Well, yes, who hasn't? So yeah, I think that tracks. But also, they said within the fandom, most people generally agree that Bodini is the bottom in the relationship, with Aksha being the obedient service top. But there's a small community of shippers that prefer Aksha as the bottom, instead of, albeit rare. Now look, now that I've seen episode 14, I can say that I totally get Aksha being the top, Bodini the bottom. I get it as well. But maybe they switch it up. Maybe Bodini gets in a mood. I don't know. They're free to do whatever they want now, right? So, and then I do like this. Pantsubox 859 for episode 14 says, I ship Yolenta with heliocentrism. Hell yeah, you do. I ship her with that. She's 14. She is far too young to be shipped with anything other than heliocentrism. So no, I absolutely am fully 100% headcanon with that. And then Yo Sel Kretsunt for episode 14 said, what's interesting and wholesome to point out, if we were to draw parallels between the first interaction and last interaction with Aksha and Bodini in episode 7, which feels like an eternity ago, but it really wasn't that long ago. In episode 7, Aksha says, if we ignore the will of someone who is gone, I have a feeling we'll lose something important, like history maybe. And Bodini says, well, we're at the entrance, right? But it's to the heavens. And that was like when they found the chest and everything. And then in episode 14, Bodini says, however, mysteriously enough, there might be a realm that doesn't deem it useless. For example, you might call that thing history. And Aksha says, no, we're at the entrance to the heavens. You could say that their first and last moments came together full circle, almost like a orbit. Yes! Almost like an orbit, like Orb on the Movements of the Earth. Roll credits. I love it so much. It's so good. It's so freaking good. This series is amazing. It is my weekly source of fun. I get to talk about fun things with you all with this series because it lets it be known. It's just a good time. So yeah, anyway, we're on episode 16. And that's crazy to me. So I'm excited. I hope you all are as well. But thank you all so much for the kind words, the comments. I appreciate them every week. I want to give a really quick shout out before we begin over to our philanthropy tier over on Patreon. If you liked this video and you like me rambling about this series, like the video, leave a comment down below. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, darn it. And otherwise, thank you, Patreon, for donating some money to help me keep doing what I'm doing. And especially to the philanthropy tier who donate a couple extra doll hairs each month for the ladies. So thank you, Alex Cornejo. Thank you, Be Happy. Thank you, Dana, Damage3245. Thank you, Devorin. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Destiny Marie. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Ichu. Thank you to Phi Show, Ghostly, Turnip, Linden, El Freya, Murphy, Willie Morris, Translucent Men, Sunspots, Shimoyama, James, Diana Williams, and Care Susar. Thank you all so much. I greatly appreciate it. All of my love. So yeah, I'm excited. Let's get down to it. We're going to start episode 16 of Orb on the Movements of the Earth. And we are going to do that here in 3, 2, 1. And let's turn that sound on and let's go. Oh, so we're playing that game. What? 25 years later? Oh, you're not just going to give us Yolenta, are you? No, we're going to have to work for Yolenta. We're going to have to work for Yolenta. We're going to have to work for her, and that's fine. That's okay. I can do that. I can make that work. All right, first of all, before we get talking to this, Schmidt, I'm interested about Schmidt. At first I was like, oh yes, then I was like, uh-oh, and then I was like, all right. So the oh yes, uh-oh, okay feels like an appropriate response to Schmidt. So Schmidt's voice actor Schmidt is the only person I looked up. I didn't look up the guy that was interrogating him. His voice sounded super familiar. Somebody in the comments down below will probably tell me who they are. But Schmidt is voiced by Satoshi Hino. He has voiced some characters that I know. He has voiced Rengoku from Demon Slayer. He voices Kamo from Jujutsu Kaisen. He voices a Blue Lock character that I cannot say because it's a major spoiler. If you've not watched Blue Lock, if you have watched Blue Lock, all I'm going to say is David Bowie Eyes. You'll know the character. But he has also voiced, looking down here, he's voiced a lot of different characters. Those are the ones that I mainly know. He's voiced other ones that I don't know yet, so that's exciting. But yeah, fun times. His voice is mwah. I love his voice so much. He looks like Mario. He looks like Mario with those. It's really weird. His character's personality is like, personality-wise, I'm just going to write Schmidt up here because Schmidt is rather interesting, right? So we're going to put Schmidt up here. Schmidt, like, his personality is oddly enough like if Bodini and Nowak came together, but then were in Bizarro Land, because his views, I say like Nowak and Bodini because he's very playful like Nowak. He's kind of like playful, but also could slit your throat. So that's like Nowak. But then like Bodini, he is very strong in his convictions. His convictions are absolutely opposite of Bodini's in every way, but he has a very strong conviction. So I'm like, okay, cool. Huckleberry, I am not going to, oh, there it is. Bend down off my stool and get it. But he's like Bodini in that he's very strong in his convictions. And also, he kind of has a similar mindset to Bodini of, oh, you don't want to follow me and believe me? Whatever, do your thing, I'll do mine. He kind of has that same mentality, right? I said he was like Aksha in the fact that he's kind of like a burlier kind of like intimidating presence, which Aksha is. But then when you get to talking to him, you're like, oh, well, you're not that bad. So interesting. But then he has like the blue, oh my gosh, there goes the marker. I had to bend down and get in anyway. So then he also has like the Raffles eyes. He also has like the Antony hairdo. Oh God, we're gonna find. Good thing. I'm so glad Antony aged poorly. I'm so glad. You know how some people age like a fine wine? No, Antony's heart was so disgusting that it made him age horribly. Good. He has like the Antony hair, and then he also has like Aksha's let me get here. If I can write today. Aksha's like frame. He's like a big mixture of all of them. I like Schmidt. Schmidt is interesting. Do I agree with everything that Schmidt says? No. But do I find him fascinating? Yes. He's very intriguing. Very intriguing indeed. And we're going to talk about this along with some other concepts from the episode. I'm going to be real with you all. Back when the last version of the OP, I like the OP just keeps, it's the same thing, but it's evolving with new characters. Fun times. When I saw Schmidt in the previous OP, I thought that was Antony. I thought it was Antony. Antony had grown out a mustache. We were going to get a time skip with Antony. We do get a time skip with Antony, but not the one that we would be expecting. So 25 years later, things have changed, but it's like the more they change, the more they stay the same, right? So here we have these three. We have Free. We have the one guy that kind of looks like Gross, if I'm being honest with you. And then we have Schmidt. And they all pose as the Inquisition taking a heretic in to be questioned. I like that the Inquisition have these helmets now that they wear, or at least these guys wear them. They aren't questioned when they go in, so it makes me think that it is something that some of the maybe higher up Inquisitioners wear. And it would kind of make sense because we've seen some of the Inquisitioners taken out by Aksha, so it made me think, oh, they've upgraded their stuff so that it's not as easy for them to get taken out in the head, right? So we find out that we're now 25 years later. 25 years later. We just see a bare glimpse of Yolenta in the OP, like the tiniest glimpse, not enough to really give you anything. And I'm not going to analyze the OP. I know some of you may want me to do that, but I know if I analyze it, I will spoil myself. So I'm just going to like let it happen. Let it come in waves. Every episode when we see a new part to it, I'll be like, oh, there we go. But I'm not going to spoil myself with the OP. No. But if we're thinking about it, Yolenta would be 39 at this time, which is still a respectable age. Just to let you know, Yolenta would be 39. The heavenly baby born between Bodini and Aksha would be able to rent a car. Y'all know it's true. And Raffle would have been 37. Isn't that wild? No, he would have been 25 when he would have been 22 during auction them's time. So he would actually be like 47 now. I'll put RIP Raffle. RIP Raffle, he would have been 47. You know what the crazy thing is? We probably will not see Ringo Starr. I don't want confirmation of that because who knows, he might show up as an elderly man. But I don't think we're going to see Ringo Starr because if Raffle would have been 47 at this timeline, then that would have made Padicki at least in his 80s, and that timeline wasn't very strong. But if we think about it, Novak right now, if she's 39, Novak is probably what? Let's be generous and say that Novak was 20 when Yolenta was born. Let's just say an average of 20. So he would be at least 59, if not into his 60s at this point. So Novak could still be alive. He very much could be, but he will be an older man. If Antony is still hanging on to life out of pure spite, Novak better be around. Either one of two things has happened. One of three. Either one of three things has happened. Either one, Novak is dead and he died of old age or a broken heart or worse, and I hope it's not the worst. Two, he died 25 years ago, shortly after Aksha Bodini, when he thought that Yolenta died, and we're going to find that out because we keep going back and forth in the timeline, which is interesting to me. I like that. Or he is still around and we're going to see him here 25 years later. I just want him to see Yolenta before he dies. I want him to know she was safe. That's all I want. I'm not asking for much, show. I don't know if the show is going to give it to me, but I just want Novak to know his daughter was safe. That's all I want. I'm not asking for a whole lot. So the guy that is the Inquisitioner at the very beginning, who has the very luscious locks of hair, but unfortunately had to shave his head, he is voiced by somebody that I recognize, and I cannot tell you who it is, but I recognize his voice. And the moment, I should have realized, the moment he said that you were late, it should have been a sign that, oh, these aren't the Inquisitioners you were looking for. But then again, we don't have a high standard of the Inquisitioners other than Novak from the start. So it was like, why would you question that? So yeah, we have Schmidt. And Schmidt is the leader of the Heretic Liberation Front. Interesting. So we have Schmidt, who is part of this vigilante justice group that is the Heretic Liberation Front. There's a part of me that wants to kind of know about the history of them, but there's another part of me that's like, oh, that feels like it might be like Vinland Saga, where I get spoilers if I look up historical things. So I just want to see if there was an actual page on them, or if it's just, okay. No, there's not a wiki page on them, so we're not going to look that up yet. We're going to leave we're going to just leave that. It's not a historical movement. It's fictional for right now. So we might look up some things similar to it later. We'll see. We'll see. But yeah, so he goes in to get questioned. And their Inquisition, you've raided chambers in every region and freed the heretics. So they're searching for books. It seems like what they're also looking for is that they are searching for books on heliocentrism, specifically for anything by Bodini and Akshay. And they have a leader that has gone not only unnamed, but ungendered. And I feel like that is very suspicious. It's very suspicious. It makes me think that in my mind, the leader is either the person that we saw in the flashback, that is also in the OP. I'm going to put in the OP. Or the leader is Yolenta. I feel like it's one of the two. It's either the person in the flashback that was seen as a kid 25 years ago running away. They're either the leader, or they are Schmidt. They're either the leader or Schmidt. Or they're possibly somebody else. Or, if not that, then it's Yolenta. Because the fact they didn't give the leader a gender makes it super suspicious. Because it's like, if it was a guy, but if they're trying to hide that it's Yolenta, they don't gender. So it's like, I don't know. But anyway, it would make sense if it was Yolenta, because Yolenta knows that Bodini was working on the Book of Heliocentrism. He met with them that night before Novak cornered them to say that he had finished it, and he was taking it to the south. So if Yolenta is the leader of the Liberation Front, then she'd be like, we need to find those books. However, what's interesting is we know from the episodes prior, or we think that we know, that supposedly Bodini gave up the material, and last we knew, either Novak or Antony had it, or it was sealed in the vault. We're going to find out. We're going to find out as we go. That's fine. That's nice. I'm going to hold this toy here. Yeah, so we're going to find out as we go. But I thought this interrogation scene was really good. Look, my mind, when he talked about, like, your initiation test, the disgusting initiation test, I'm not going to lie, my mind went to the gutter immediately. I was like, oh, what is this hazing that we're doing? Like, my mind immediately went to the gutter. But instead, it's far worse. It's far worse. The initiation, I'll put here, the initiation is that you have to abandon your God and accept as a naturalist. Now, at first, I thought that Schmidt was maybe atheist, because I was like, oh, he's rejecting all religions. But that is not the case. Instead, he very much believes that there is a higher power. He just believes that it's in nature. He doesn't believe that it's a construct. So, let's see here. Naturalist. I want to see if it's an actual religion. Religious naturalism. Okay. A framework responds to types of questions and aspirations that are part of religions. It's a view that the natural world is all that exists, and it constitutes principles and relationships. They're just the sole reality. All that occurs is due to natural due processes with nothing supernatural involved. Well, that's not really what he believes. So we might have to backtrack on that. I don't feel like the naturalism says, well, when the term religious is used with respect to religious naturalism, it's understood in a general way. Interesting. It sounds like some people, according to the wiki articles, believes kind of what Schmidt is talking about, where it's just people's belief, but your belief is that the supernatural is with nature itself and not a construct, not a man-made construct, because he's very much against that. So that's interesting. Okay. But yeah, so basically this guy, it's very weird to see a couple things. One, the Inquisitioner in question is not torturing Schmidt right off the bat. So it's not like Novak. Novak was all about let's get down to brass tacks and interrogate and torture and get the information out of you. This guy's not doing that, which makes me question how things have changed since Novak has been there. Antony did not like Novak. He did not like his way of doing things. So maybe there's been some changes in the church. I kept wondering if we were going to see the blonde. We don't see the blonde, so I'm curious what that has to do with everything. But yeah, there's not the same torture methods to start off that Novak would have used. Didn't happen. So instead, this guy has the unfortunate problem of being all alone whenever these guys, oh my gosh, my dog, come in to try to get Schmidt out. I like all of the candles that are showing like the different knowledge and everything. That part was really nice. Nice little symbolism there. But yeah, and then they have this discussion. It feels like it's straight out of Always Sunny in Philadelphia about religion, about faith. It feels like it's the Dennis versus is it Matt, his character, where they're doing like the creationism versus evolution. And he's trying to convince him creationism is real. It felt like that argument. He's like, oh, well, you have blind faith in your own righteousness. And he basically throws it back at him and he's like, there is no misunderstanding. He's like, you can act defiant and whatever. He's like, the idea of cursing one's fate comes from a lack of faith. My God is absolute, and my faith is determined by what my God deems most appropriate. Unlike you, I don't pray to a God or hope for an answer. I accept my fate no matter what it will be. That way I'm always at an advantage. He does call out the one guy. He does call out the Inquisitioner being like, well, pot calling the kettle black because you do the exact same thing that I'm talking about, but because it's your faith, it's okay. And I'm like, you're not wrong. So yeah, okay. So the one person in the OP, though, does have the brown eyes with the eyelashes. Lots of characters have the under eye eyelashes. They're like broccoli over here. Very interesting. But yeah, I'm not going to try to get too much into the OP. But yeah, we don't know who this one person is. But it looks like they are maybe the one that escaped. The question is, are they the leader, or is the leader Leolenta? The fact that they showed Bodini with the rope around his neck now and they changed that part of the OP, how dare they? That was cruel. And now we know these three guys, one of them is free, one of them is Schmidt. We don't know the guy with the white, like, upper tresses, but now we know who they are. We see them, interestingly enough. And then we see them passing information. We see the coin flip. There's some guy that's missing an eye from the OP that he seemed like he was at the end of this episode. So I'm curious what his deal is. And then we see Antony. He's aged, spiteful bitch. And then, okay, there is the necklace. I'm so curious. Yep, I want to know. I want to know more, but we're not there yet. Anyways, this episode is called It's Time to Begin the Operation. Interesting. We didn't even get into Grabowski. We got into none of him. I was expecting this whole episode to be like, what happened to Father Grabowski about writing all of the head tattoos into the book? Didn't even get that. Didn't get it. It's been 25 years. What happened? They're going to tell us at some point, but it's like, what the fudge? Didn't even get into it. How dare they? So yeah, so we have oxygen, the gunpowder, and the fire. We got 3 ingredients, boom, boom, boom. They preface it to talk about the East and like fireworks and where those have come from and like all the explosives. I like that kind of little historical tie-in that the people in the church don't exactly know what explosives are yet, and so they're introducing them. Also, I think it's kind of an interesting little discussion about trade, which is interesting in this. Because you think about it, I know in my own country, there is lots of nationalism that gets thrown about and lots of racism and lots of things of like, oh, we don't trade with so-and-so. We don't want to trade with them, the other, and all this. And I'm like, cutting yourself off and isolating may have worked back in medieval times, but it is not a functional practice now in this globalized world, or this very much globalized world that we live in. And it feels like it's an interesting tie-in to this series because the church, the fact they don't even know what explosives are, they were cutting themselves off from, trading with the heathens, or at least on the surface. And here you have this liberation front who, because they're not tied down to the same kind of orthodox beliefs the church are, they're like, oh yeah, we're good with trading with them. That's fine. That's great. So there is kind of this discussion here under the surface of this one scene about how isolating oneself with your religion and not being open-minded and not accepting of others, it, in this instance, possibly has limited what they know versus the Liberation Front and what they have access to. And so it's interesting. It's interesting to me. So yeah, they have this whole procedure go down. Them wearing the masks makes sense now, so the debris and stuff wouldn't clock them in the head and kill them. I think Antony's gone all like stormtrooper with the white cloaks and everything, the Crusaders and everything, going all monochromatic. But yeah, different design, as you know. Interesting. I wonder if Damien's still alive. The 25 years later, I'm like, is this person still alive? Are they still here? And so, yeah, they're like, I'll skip the details. And then they blow it up. The one thing that I think speaks so much for their characters is when the one guy, like, reaches over and grabs Schmidt's leg as he's buried under the rubble and he's about to die. Schmidt didn't kick him. He didn't make any comment. He just went, pardon me, and moved his hand and he died. That's it. I feel like that one little gesture says a lot about his character without having to say anything, which is so interesting to me. But yeah, so they talk about it's difficult to master science. I feel like Free is a number of things for me. So Free is the guy. He looks very bored with life. I wondered if he was maybe the kid that ran away because he kind of looks like his uncle. If that was the case, he kind of looks like the brother of the dad that gets killed. But we have Free. He's kind of a mix of Bertolt from Attack on Titan and the Demolitions Man in Atlanta and Atlantis, the Disney movie. He's like a mixture of that, but he's the one that got the explosives. You know what? I really like that about his character because that explains why he's so calm under pressure. Like when the one guy at the very end of the episode comes and he's like reading the book and he comes up from behind him with the sword and he's like, let's go. And Free is able to like slide the book into the drawer. That kind of calm, think quickly under pressure kind of mentality. If you're a guy working with explosives and having to be very precarious so you don't blow your face off, you might want to have a personality like that. So that kind of makes sense. That's really interesting. Yeah. Then we have Lewandowski. So, okay. Lewandowski is the other guy that has the fringe. He's got the upturned fringe hair. He looks like Gross. So it's like we're getting a whole bunch of things. I want to see Free Orb Japanese VA. Who is he? Oh, Yuya Uchida. Really? Really? Are you kidding? Okay. All right. If you need to know who Free voices, he voices many things. He's Orden in Frieren Beyond Journey's End. He has been in One Piece. He was in Chainsaw Man. That's interesting. He's also been in a lot. Oh, he's 86. He's never been 86. Yep. Okay. I recognize that voice. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed, I do. Okay. What else has he been in? He's been in a couple other things. He's been in Seven Deadly Sins. Yep. Okay, cool. So we have him, and then we have Lewandowski, Orb VA. Where's his VA? Who is his VA? Tell me your VA. All right, Lewandowski is voiced by... How dare you give me... I will find out who his voice actor is. Okay, his voice actor is Fuminori Komatsu, who has not done as much. Oh, okay, so Lewandowski, he's had some things to do. He was the voice of Yoshiki's dad in Summer Hikaru Died. That's interesting. Cool. Nice. He's Snake in Vinland Saga. Oh, awesome. Lewandowski's voice actor. Nice. Okay. Very intriguing. And he's been in The Great Pretender. He's been a character in that series. He's Lestrade in Moriarty the Patriot. Damn, okay, cool. I've seen him in quite a few things then. He was in Sausage Party. That's interesting. He was Frank for the Japanese dub. Wow, okay, he's been in a lot. He's been a lot of side characters, but they're like characters you would recognize in the series. Interesting. He also's like done a lot of dub for English things like the B Movie and Ben 10. That's crazy. Cool. Awesome. Nice. Nice to know you, Fuminori Komatsu. Cool. But yeah, so we got a pretty good voice cast for these three. Yeah, I like that their characters are all very different, this trio, but they go down there and get the relic they're looking for. Schmidt's design and personality kind of won me over this episode. I was like, okay, all right, intriguing. He's got a little bit of arrogance to him, but he's not mean. He's just kind of like, this is how it is. So he tells the heretics that they rescued that the hazing that they are about to do is that you have to give up your religion. He's like, if you want to follow me, if you want to tag along with Free and Lebowski, and I want to go Lebowski like the big Lebowski, Lowardowski with me. If you want to travel, I'm just going to call him Lebowski. If you want to travel with Free and Lebowski, if you want to travel with the dude and Free and me, then this is what you got to do. And he's like, you've got to abandon your religion. Now, I thought that was intriguing. I get why he wants them to do it, because he's like, you can't have any second thoughts. You've got to be ready to let go and join my crew if you're going to roll with me. Otherwise, we're fine. Just get out of my way. I think that's interesting. Now, do I agree with everything that he says? No, I don't. I think he makes some really good points. He really does a good job of pointing out kind of the hypocrisy of the church, which I like. But in the same breath, he kind of creates a structure in a similar way as the church, which is intriguing. Because he's like, you can't bring along your man-made order or your God if you're in my crew. He's like, that's not going to work. He's like, there are only two choices. Everything else is luxury. That's the thing. The Sith deal in absolutes, but also so do the Jedi. That's kind of the thing. It always, one of the things from Star Wars that I love when people bring up is they're like, oh, well, the Jedi always talk about the Siths only deal in absolute, but I'm like, the Jedi kind of only deal in absolutes as well. Do or do not, there is no try. So it's interesting that you have the church and you have Schmidt and his Liberation Front, and they both are kind of organizations surrounded behind an ideal, and that ideal has a structure. It has rules. It has what you can and cannot do. The difference between the two is that the church, if you don't go along with what they want, then they could possibly kill you. To be fair, to play devil's advocate, Schmidt said, you don't have to go along with this too, but you might die as well. So there is some similarities there. I think the biggest difference is that Schmidt is not actively pursuing people to kill because they don't believe in what he believes. I think that's the biggest difference. With the church, they are actively looking for heretics. They are actively gathering up heretics and gathering them up and killing them because they are afraid of the movements like the Liberation Front that could result because of them. Schmidt doesn't seem to care if you're Christian or not. He's like, just stay out of my way and let me do my thing. And if you want to join me, cool. But if not, cool, just stay away from me. So there's, I am not a particular fan of, there's only two options, because in the real world, there are never only two options. I spent like 20 hours talking about Attack on Titan in this very theme. Like ran my throat raw. There are never just two options. There are always multiple options. Are those options easy? No. Are those options hard? Yeah. Are those options always feasible? Maybe, maybe not. But are they there and available and can be considered? Mm-hmm. You may not like the cost. You may not like the cost of those options, but they are there. And people that treat them like they're not there, I'm like, oh, no, they are. You just may not want to pay the price. So yeah, I find it so fascinating that you have these characters now that Schmidt has, and on the surface you're like, oh, Schmidt's freeing the heretics, that's cool, but then you're like, oh, Schmidt is actually constructing an organization that's not too different from the church, but different enough. So it's interesting because he's like, if we don't believe in the Holy Scripture, then what do we believe? And he's like, oh, well, we'll believe in nature. Our dispute is only with the church. I like these guys are like, our dispute's just with the church, but, you know, the orthodox of it, but not the church itself. You know, don't you share those same beliefs? And he's like, oh, no. He's like, I'm different. He's like the Liberation Front, he says, as a whole, may be in the same boat you are, but me personally, he's like, that's not my mission. He's like, why are you disappointed? Only the positive rumors have spread about me. In this moment, I thought it was so interesting because it's kind of the opposite of Bodini, right? You have Schmidt, who Schmidt has had all of these positive rumors about him, right? Where everybody was like, oh my gosh, Schmidt's got this liberation front, he's freeing the heretics, he's such a great guy. But he acknowledges, he's like, no, I'm pretty rigid. This is what I believe. And I'm pretty rigid in what that is. And if you don't believe in it with me, then fine, but go away. And I feel like that's the opposite of Bodini, because if you think back to his episodes, Bodini had these, even though he was in the church, he had all these negative rumors surrounding like him murdering his associate, how he wasn't a good bishop, how he'd been demoted, etc., etc. But the reality was, and he seemed very rigid, but the reality was by the end of his life, he was actually a little bit more open-hearted than he let on. And I feel like Schmidt is kind of the opposite of Bodini. So that's fascinating. They're both really good characters. I like Schmidt a lot. He's fascinating to me, but they're very different. He's like, you could say that destruction is all that is necessary. Ooh, I like that. So whereas Bodini was about creation, Bodini is like, we need to create to find the truth. We need to create to get closer to the truth, closer to God. Schmidt is saying we need to destroy to reveal the truths. And that's how we get closer to God. So isn't it interesting? Aren't people's different faiths so fun? And I find that fascinating because I do like in a lot of Japanese culture where they believe that different things in nature have a spiritual connection, that do I necessarily believe the same thing? Well, not entirely, but I do like the idea that there is a divine presence in nature around us. I think that there is. I like that idea. I mean, it kind of goes with, if you are Christian, the idea that God has given you this. It kind of goes back to Hubert. God's given you this beautiful earth. How could it not be spiritual? Like that, Hubert kind of touched on that back in the early episodes. He's like, how could it not be? And I want to prove that. So I feel like we're kind of tying back around to that just in a different way. He's like, all impure man-made frameworks need to be destroyed. Schmidt's out here being like, we just all need to be nude, out in the woods, doing what we do. I don't see the problem. Schmidt just wants to start a nudist colony. Why are we not doing that for him? Why are we denying him that? We need to live modestly in the natural world that is God's order. That's what's best. That's what is best for human beings. Yeah. And that conversation about living modestly is going to come back. That is going to come back about that living modestly. I don't want to know who the kid is because the show makes it intentionally dark so you can't understand and see all the way. If the brightness is turned all up, it'd probably be easier. But I want to say that the kid that escapes 25 years ago may be Schmidt, which would be interesting to me, because if that were the case, then if it were Schmidt, this conversation that he's having with the Liberation Front is kind of similar to that of his uncle's. But then the other part of me is like, the person with the bottom lashes at the beginning of the OP seems like that might have been the kid that escaped because the woman looked just like them. So yeah, we'll find out. We'll find out next week, probably. Presumably. We don't have the capacity to handle truth appropriately. That's such an interesting thing. Bodini would look at Schmidt and probably spit on him. Bodini would probably be like, excuse me? He'd probably be like, what? And that's what's so fascinating, because they're looking for Bodini and Aksha's work, and we are assuming that they are heliocentric, enthusiasts, like the heretics are. But what's interesting is Bodini was a man of the church who was very faithful. He just, wanted to try and find the truth. And he's like, and what's interesting is that when Schmidt says we don't have the capacity to handle the truth appropriately, Bodini would have scoffed at that. Bodini would have laughed. Bodini would have probably been like, well, Aksha probably has more capacity to handle the truth than you do. Like, he would have been totally against that idea, 100%. And it's like, that's so wild to see like two characters that are essentially kind of on the same side of heliocentrism have vastly different views about the truth. Now, is he incorrect in saying that, trying to dig too deep to the truth can lead to, half-truths lead to misunderstandings, misunderstandings lead to tragedy? It's kind of, I felt like it was Yoda saying, anger leads to sadness, sadness leads to tragedy, or, like whatever that speech is Yoda does to Anakin Skywalker in the prequels. It felt like that. He's like, but unnatural tragedies caused by humans must not be tolerated. So he's like, if there's a tsunami, we're not going to blame Mother Earth. Tragedy's born from nature, but y'all being a bunch of bitches, that won't stand. He's like, so if you agree with me, then declare it now. I think the biggest difference is when the one guy is like, no, Schmidt says, I respect your decision. That's the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing to me. Because do I agree with everything Schmidt says? No, I don't. But I respect Schmidt in the fact that he's open-minded enough to be like, oh, cool. You believe what you want. Just let me through. Which is interesting. I respect that. I know, like, for example, a lot of people, I'm going to get on my soapbox for a hot second with y'all, but it drives me crazy that we have a group of people in my country that will quote our Constitution and be like, well, the First Amendment is the right to free speech and religion, so you can believe whatever you want. But then one of the major cities in our country just elected a mayor who is, Muslim. Cool. Awesome. Nice. And then people, I'm like, you can't complain because it's freedom of religion. You can't complain because that's part of our constitutional right. He doesn't have to be Christian. He could be Buddhist. He could be atheist. He could believe in Sasquatch. I don't know. But that doesn't matter. And does it impede in his job? I don't know. And then other people were like, he was marching in pride parades and stuff. And they're like, well, but he's Muslim. I'm like, well, some Christians support and are allies to LGBTQ people. Does that make them any less Christian? Not necessarily. I don't think so. So it's fascinating. It's fascinating. I find it interesting. But Schmidt's somebody I am interested in. He's like, we may fight to the death at some point. And he's like, just get out of my way and hope that don't happen. So yes, they give him that book. And he says, so is this the book? And he's like, yeah, I had a look inside. And it mentions heliocentrism. And he's like, it mentions the earth moving. He's like, what about the name Aksha or Bodini? And I like the idea that Schmidt is just looking for Aksha Bodini fan fiction. He's like, I haven't seen it, sir. If I find the doujinshi, I'll let you know. Love it. He's like, I haven't seen those names yet. Interestingly, I don't know if they will. You would think Bodini would have his name plastered over his theories all over the place, but I don't know if he will or not. That's interesting. And he's like, yeah, same as always. So they find this abandoned village. They say it's abandoned because of the plague. I don't know. Seemed like there was some crazy Kool-Aid drinking going on in that village. So I don't know if it was the plague or they all just killed each other. I don't know. Anyway, so we go back to 25 years ago, which this being 25 years ago is interesting to me because that is around the time that all this was going down with Yolenta and Novak and Bodini and Aksha. So while Antony was trying to get everything in order, there were people gathering in villages that were completely like denouncing their faith. And honestly, The uncle brings about some very interesting ideas. So, okay, at the beginning, we see somebody looking through the cracks. And they have like a little bit of the lower eyelashes. But okay, so it is like the woman, the mom. Or no, it's the kid. She's like with the kid. So the kid, I don't think the kid had blue eyes, but it could be Schmidt. Or it could be, no, whoever this person is that's in the OP. They also, the kid, they never show the kid's face directly. We never see their face. And their shirt also kind of looks like it could be a skirt. So the kid looks androgynous. I can't tell if the kid is male or female. Can't tell. The only reason it matters is because it would help me know if it's Schmidt or the person in the OP. That's the only difference that would let me know. And we're going to have to wait and find that out next episode because we're not going to get to it this week. But yeah, so the brother stops him and I was like, I don't know. The brother kind of looks like Free, which is interesting. I like how we've gone from everyone being blonde and looking the same like they're related to everyone being brunette and looking like they're the same and related. But the brother stops him. If I had been them, I would have left. He's like, our village has gone mad. It's a freaking cult. Would have left. I also feel like it's interesting because, again, the one person looks kind of like Schmidt too. Yeah, says you're hungry, aren't you? Tell me something, brother. Yeah, I mean, maybe it is Schmidt. Why is it that we're hungry? He's like, well, the nobility, it's just the way things are. The nobility do their part. Here's the thing that's kind of crazy. I don't disagree with what the brother says, but he takes it to an extreme. I feel like there's a lot of times where people say really accurate and profound things, but then they take their response to an extreme where it gets to a place of violence. And considering what's happened in my own country over the last year, that feels very poignant. That feels very worth talking about because he's like, do you remember what we were taught? To go through it's easier to teach a camel to go through the eye of the needle than for a rich man to enter heaven. Yeah, I feel like, once you start getting some money in, it's easy for greed to take over. It really is. It's easy for greed to take over. And I've seen it. I've had dabbles of it myself. I see how tempting it is, right? He's like, be diligent, be humble, and live a modest life. It's because we believe in those teachings, that we're able to function, but what about them? I think that's interesting because Schmidt brings that up about living modestly and like getting back to nature and doing all this. And so part of me wonders if the little kid was Schmidt because they saw this go down. They're like, if we just abandoned all of this like fluff around us and we just lived modestly and all that, then we wouldn't have to worry about this. The funny thing is, in the New Testament, Christ basically asks people to do that. Jesus is all about give your money to the poor, live a modest life, and don't have wealth. That's like, he's like, give the clothes off your back to your strangers, give to the poor, feed people. Like Jesus' teachings are all about that. All these religious people sometimes that I encounter on social media and see in real life, they forget that part. They're all very scripture knowledgeable up until it's like, oh, hey, you're supposed to give away all your stuff. And they're like, oh, but well. It's like, yeah. And I understand living within your means. If you got kids to feed and to clothe and put a roof over their head, yeah. But I also know in my own neck of the woods, a lot of like preachers who, first of all, if you're a preacher, I'm sorry, I don't believe you should make a salary. I know, that's crazy talk. I believe that you should have a job and your preaching should be in addition to that job. My grandfather was a preacher. I've had 3 grandfathers in my family all be preachers. My father's father was a preacher, my mother's grandfather was a preacher, and my mother's great-grandfather was a preacher from all different family lines. And my dad's dad, my grandfather, who is a preacher, was a mailman. He worked for the U.S. Postal Service and was a preacher. It's like, yeah, you're not making a lot of money working for the Postal Service, but he did that and did preaching on the side. He didn't make a salary off of that. And then my other grandfathers were farmers. They were farmers that preached on Sundays. And their farming was their job. And I'm not talking like factory farms. I'm talking like they had 50 acres, a mule, and maybe a tractor by the 50s, you know? So I'm very much the people that I see now that are preachers that have like yachts and the mega church owners that have private jets. I'm like, you are not living at all the teachings of what you profess. You are farthest from it, sir. So it's wild to me. Yeah. But the brother does make a good point. He's like, we suffer. We're told to be modest. We're told to do these things. But the people in the church are benefiting off of us. And what about them? Why are they not giving away their things? They pass out drunk at taverns and we suffer for it. And that's kind of thing. Organized religion is not really my thing. And I get it to an extent that churches need to keep the lights on. I get it that they need to do donations, but I went to like a friend invited me to church a while back, and I'm open game. I'm up for it. I'm Christian. I'm pretty non-denominational, but I'll go to anything. I'll try anything once. If you start passing around snakes, I draw the line. And if you start speaking in tongues, I draw the line because I'm like, I don't believe in any of that stuff. That stuff's just, I feel like that's just for attention. I'm like, no, I don't think so. I don't think the Lord's speaking through you, making snake noises. No. But that's just my opinion. You do you. If that's what you believe, good on you. And the words of Schmidt, I respect your decision. But I went to a church and it was fine. The service was fine. It was very congenial. I didn't feel like anything was out of place. But at the end of the sermon, they pass around the plate to collect the money. And he kept talking about how the preacher kept talking about how we need to bring people back to the church. We need to keep them coming back to the church. And I was thinking for a while that the message was, oh, these people, need to come back to keep their faith, to keep the community, which I understand the community. A lot of people go to church for the community aspect. But then he said, like so-and-so, she may only be able to donate $1 this week, and that's fine. If she can only donate $1, that's okay. And I thought that's where the conversation was ending. Like, yeah, if people donate any money to the congregation, anything should be accepted. Anything should be understood because everybody has different needs and they're going through different hardships. And he was like, so, she's going to come this week and donate $1 and that's fine. If that's all she can afford, that's good. But you know what? Over time, she's going to see her faith being sustained. And in a couple weeks, she might donate $2 and then $3 or $4. And I was like, wait a minute. I was like, what if she just keeps donating $1 forever and that's all she can afford? Why are we pressuring her to donate more money the longer she's there? And I left that church with a very sour taste in my mouth because I was like, I get the message that he was giving, but it left an impression of, oh, the longer you're here, the more you'll feel the need to donate to the church. And I was like, but that's not the point of faith or this religion, to fund your church through your people. No, nope. Just do a bake-off. Have a fundraiser if you're that worried about it. It left a sour taste in my mouth and I was like, I don't know if I'll come back. So they said, why should faith be divided by class? Why do we have to stay quiet and accept things as they are? And so, yeah. And he's like, well, you're right to point these things out. He's like, but if our village uses such violent means, divisions will only grow. He's like, at this rate, our village is going to all of us will be labeled as heretics. And he's like, when he said that's your answer, I was like, ooh, not good. Mayday, get out of there. Nope. I do agree that I think the brother, whatever he was saying, I'm like, no, that is all justified. I feel like occasionally, and we see it time and time again in history, I feel like we teeter on the edge of it now in modern times, but people just get fed up. They get fed up of being taken advantage of, and they get fed up of being abused. Let them eat cake. Eat the rich. I feel like at some point, some people reach their breaking points, and it's a question of, are they willing to get violent? And I've seen it in my own lifetime so many times. Yeah, people can get violent because they don't feel like there's any other choice. They don't feel like there's any other options. And the fact that he was willing to kill his own brother is insane to me. Now, did the mom get away or did she get killed and the kid get away? I don't know how that works, but the dad died. And for the one guy to be like, I'm giving you time to repent and to despair and everything. I was like, that's your brother. That's crazy. But that's where he got. That's where he got to. So the one kid gets away. The mom protects the kid, and they manage to get away with the cross. So we're going to see where that goes if we see that again, right? Interesting. I don't know. I feel like Free looks kind of like the person in question, but they don't have the downturned eyebrows. So maybe it is Schmidt, because Schmidt has the downturned eyebrows. So they're looking around. I like that Free has the lantern and is like, what are we looking at? Like, what exactly was this written for? And what does the leader want with it? Is that the diary? Is that the book that Aksha wrote, the original one? And then he wrote another one that Badini burned? Is that what it is? I'm so fascinated. I want to know. I feel like it looks just like that book. Free was so calm. Free was like, I'm going to go with you. Sure thing. Let's go. And then they convinced the big Lebowski as well as Schmidt to come back for the book later. Schmidt ain't afraid to kill a person. That was pretty terrifying. So yeah, so they all plan to leave and they're like, we'll come back and collect it later. So then Anthony shows up. This old bitch, this wrinkled old prune shows up. Where's Novak? We don't see him, but there's somebody here missing an eye that looks suspiciously like the person that was in the OP that looked younger but missing an eye. So, like, this person will offer us more. I don't know who this person is, but they seem like they might be in the OP, in the ED, and OP. I wonder. Because then, like, they look like they're a native. Like they're from an indigenous tribe there. I don't know how that works in Europe. But their kid is there. I'm so curious. What if the girl, what if Yolinta's in a Yuri relationship with the girl from the OP if they're a girl? What if that's the case? I'd be all for that. Go Yolinta, get you some. So, and did Badini or Aksha or Novak reincarnate into a pigeon? We'll have to see. What a wild episode. Oh, I have so many questions. I have so many theories, so many questions of who is who, but we're going to have to wait till next week to find out. Just when I think, I'm like, Raffle's dead. What can we do with the story? Boom, Aksha and Badini. Then I'm like, Aksha and Badini are dead and Yolinta's missing. What can we do with the story? Boom, Schmidt appears. And we still don't even know about Father Grabowski. No clue. So, okay. All we know is that Anthony's still a bitch, just a wrinkly old prune bitch. Anyway, I'm very curious to know your thoughts down below. I hope you all enjoyed this reaction discussion. Unhinged, but it needed to be. And I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yes, I'll be back very soon with more of Orb on the movements of the Earth. I'll see you then. Bye.